It is the future. And an environmental disaster threatens life on Earth. One of the consequences is a highly infectious virus that turns people into bloodthirsty zombies. The elites, who run a company with the acronym WICKED, have built cities with high walls to keep the diseased people out. They have placed the immune children into cages called the Mse to study them. Their every action is rooted in fear for their mortal lives. The trapped teens who run the maze are trying to find a way to escape, and they are called the Maze Runners. And I know all about the Maze Runners, thanks to the avid readers in the confirmation class. And you see, I am so grateful because it strikes me that Mark chapter 9 and the Maze Runner novels and movies have a lot in common. If Peter and James and John and the other disciples ever time traveled to the dystopian future of the Maze Runner, they would be able to fully relate to the wicked world that fear had built. A place where life has no intrinsic value and every relationship is transactional. Who gets to live inside the walls and who gets cast out? Who gets the life-saving serum and who doesn't? And we were catching a glimpse of this kind of life, aren't we? Whenever our ICU beds get full and doctors receive COVID triage training. Whose life is worth a ventilator? Yours? Mine? Who is the greatest among us here, the most deserving, the most popular? Because let's hitch our wagon to them so we might find ourselves near the front or the middle of the herd, even though Jesus was the one who led from behind and was culled from the herd in order to save it. Whomever wants to be first must be last of all, servant of all. Thomas, Albie, Newt, Minnow, the other teens that have been placed in that maze by the scientists because they are immune to that virus that threatens life on Earth. They are like lab rats, and they don't even know it. Their memories have been erased, and so they build a community from scratch. And theirs is a place where every life is important. So when one of them gets sick and the medicines are found, there are no patents, no intellectual property to hoard over the dying. From the cook at the base camp to the one who maps the maze, each teen uses their skills for the benefit of all, and these strangers build bonds of love, and they even risk their own life for the survival of the tribe. And over time, as they regain some of their memories, they remember the way things were when they lived as citizens in the hierarchical cities of fear. And they realize they do not want to go back to that reality. By the end of the series, they have built their own utopian society based on the values of mutuality, altruism, compassion. If the disciples of Jesus were looking at the Maze Runner tribe, who do you think they would say was the greatest of them all? Is it the leader Thomas? Or is the greatest the runt of the litter Chuck, who sacrifices himself to save Thomas? The Maze Runner kids know, as the poet Naomi Shihab Nye says, that once you've learned how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness, then it's only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness makes sense. Friends, We have been telling this very same story about our deepest desire for a just and loving world for more than 2,000 years, for as long as humans have been conscious. It's a feature, not a bug, of our humanity. Our divine DNA compels us towards kindness. Desmond Tutu says we were made for goodness. Capitalism might promote a dog-eat-dog for-profit worldview. Colonialism might have humans and subhuman categories for each of us. But the divine love that birthed us into being won't let us fall for their seductive pickup lines. We aren't better or worse than anyone else. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. I am enough. You are enough. Kalina, Maddie, Cassandra, here's what I want you 3 maze runners to know. And it's the same thing that I want the 1-year-olds and the 101-year-olds in this congregation to know, so I hope my grandma has put down her iPhone and is listening. Our society is really, really good at letting our collective fear dictate our actions. And our default is to hoard what we have behind real and metaphorical walls and treat some of God's creation as collateral damage in the race to the top. But it isn't going to be that way with you, my beloved listeners. Long before your naked body felt the cold, cold air of the delivery room, before your legs took their first steps, before your mouth formed your first words, God was dreaming you into being, molding you in the image of God's love, and giving you everything you need to become reflections of divine love in the world. We are Christ's body at work. And like your human parents, God has left divine genetic traces that will lead each one of you to your calling, whether you are a personal support worker or a CEO of a multinational company. The calling always, always, always involves loving your neighbor in ways that are challenging, life-giving, and breathtakingly beautiful. So sure, you may need to get through your high school exams first, and YouTube is definitely a great way to pass some of your downtime, but you were made for so much more. And your parents and your grandparents and your friends, we were all made for far more than we can even imagine. And as a church, we need to remind each other of this, lest we start acting like those disciples who fight over things that God doesn't care about. Christian discipleship is membership into the not-so-secret society of believers in miracles. Miracles that are born out of God's first yes to creation and require us to say yes to God through baptism and confirmation and private prayer and corporal worship and daily actions. And oh, once we've said yes to being maze runners for God, freedom from fear, glimpses of the promised land motivate us to keep going even when the walls of injustice and the lands ravished by climate change seem daunting. Because we know the secret. We don't have to solve it by ourselves. Black, brown, white, gay, straight, trans, non-binary, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Jew. We are part of the tribe. We are the children of God. And all we need is the courage to do the next right thing together. The next right thing. To let our God-given, compassionate yearning for a just and loving world lead us. There's freedom from fear and a world that is just on the horizon. Oh, siblings, Let's follow the spirit of love and live in that world.